Good evening. It's 7 o'clock, and we have 4 meetings scheduled for 7 o'clock. We're going to start with the Cunningham Town Board. We're going to have a hearing on a G2 license for a gambling establishment. We're going to have a special meeting of the Urbana City Council, and then the Committee of the Whole, which will be chaired by Aaron Ammons. So I'd like to call the meeting of the Cunningham Town Board to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Here.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Madigan? Ms. Marlin?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Smythe?
Here.
Mayor Pressing.
Here. First item is the minutes of the previous meeting. We have 3 of them, May 4th, June 1st, and June 15th.
I'll move approval for those minutes.
Second.
Motion by Roberts, second by Ammons. Any additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Committee to verify bills. Michelle Mayall.
July bills that include June interim. Town fund is $65,802.06. General assistance fund is $23,517.26.
Okay, are there any questions about the bills? Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Marlin, seconded by Roberts. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Reports of officers?
The only thing really is our audit started today, so hopefully they'll be done by the end of the week, and then I doubt they will be here to present in August, but probably September.
Okay. Petitions and communications. I have one person for this meeting, Ginger McKee.
Good evening. My name is Ginger McKee, and I work for Cunningham Children's Home. And we have a strong history with the city of Urbana. 120 years ago, Judge Joseph Cunningham deeded his home and the 15 acres around it to the women of the Methodist Episcopal Church, which is now the United Methodist Women. To celebrate that milestone 120 years ago, we are having a community open house on Sunday, July 26th. I have invitations for all of the city council members, warmly inviting you to come out to Cunningham Children's Home on North Cunningham Avenue and take a tour, visit with alumni, visit with former staff, visit with 3 of our CEOs will be there: Ed Odom, Sam Banks, and Marlene Livingston. So I will hand these invitations to you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Cunningham Town Board? Okay, we'll move on. I don't believe we have any unfinished business that we're going to deal with, so we'll move to new business. Designation of the final amended budget for fiscal 2015-2016. Michelle?
You were sent 2 budgets. One, the only difference in either one is the one budget had the $175,000 in social service funding that you had requested, and the other one has just the original $100,000 in social service funding that was presented as tentative budget. So those were emailed to everybody last week.
Charlie?
I'd like to move approval of the one we requested with the $175,000.
Second.
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Ammons. Any discussion? Eric?
I intend to support that, but I think that I had a conversation with Michelle, and she felt that she and the public were due appropriate reasons for that, and I think I agree with that. So, and on the one hand, you know, I understand the separateness of the formal and the statutory separateness of the township and the city. On the other hand, they're exactly coterminous geographically. The Urbana City Council plus the mayor comprise the township board, and the functions of the grants that we went through in our process are those types of functions for youth programs, programs for the elderly, and so forth, are specifically enumerated as being appropriate functions for the for township government. They also are appropriate functions, in my opinion, and for the city government. But I think what really is the case that is I think what's really moved me to support shifting the amount over that we did is that it just happens this year that for reasons not completely under our control, that there really is a little bit more give in the township budget than in the city budget. Partly that's because of the improvement in the reduction in the medical expenses that we're paying because of Obamacare. Partly it's because Michelle has done a very good job of adjusting the roles so that only people who are entitled to township assistance get the assistance. And because Michelle has, and you know, I don't want to punish you by loading more stuff on you, Michelle, but I want to praise you for having had the foresight to put money aside in the event that we do not prevail in the suit that Carl has brought against us. And many of us on this council, I think everybody on this council, thought under the previous finance director that money was being put aside on the city side, but we had now realized that wasn't the case. So for a number of reasons, I favored and I will favor and I will vote for shifting the, putting these expenditures on the township this year. But I just want everybody to know that I don't regard this as something that we'll always do. I don't regard it as a precedent for anything. I think this year it is the best expenditure of the public dollars for these purposes.
Anyone else? Diane?
Well, I'm going to take a different perspective on this. In the one hand, there's really no conflict here. No matter which budget we adopt, we're going to end up in the same place. We all agree on the total amount of funding that we want to allocate for social services, and both routes will get us there, whether we go with the original budget that was negotiated actually between the mayor and Michelle, and or with the second budget that the council requested her to make at the last minute. But the question is the route to take, and the financial landscape has changed significantly since our last meeting, and since we approved the final budget, and since we worked out this last minute, plan so that we could fund the police officer position and the social services, which is why we turned to the township. We were informed after the last meeting, after we approved the budget, after we did this plan, that the city was going to be receiving about $1.5 million from the TIF 3 distribution, which is going into the general operating fund. Now, I understand that it's generally going to be reserved in case we do need to pay the money back, but that relieves a little bit of the pressure on the general operating fund. And I believe that if the city council and the mayor and the city decides that this is what we want to spend on social services, then we, the city budget, should accommodate and find the funds for that. And now that with the news of the TIF 3 distribution and the change in the general fund. I think the more respectful route to take to reaching our goal is to go back to the original plan, which was $150,000 from the township, $100 for social services, and $50,000 for rent assistance, and then the remainder to come out of the city budget. And I do believe we can now afford that. So I prefer not to pass a budget over the objections of the township supervisor when we have really two viable options in front of us. So I'm supporting of Plan A and of requesting the Finance Department to have a budget amendment that would allocate the $75,000 from the general fund to social services for this year.
Just as a point of information, we do not have the money put in the general fund. We're going to put that money in escrow, which is what the school district and the park district are doing. I don't know what the county's doing. I haven't talked to them about it. So I think when you get a large amount of money like that, it should not be whittled away bit by bit. I think we have to talk about it in the context of what our top priorities are. So I just want to clarify that we don't have it available to spend at this point. Diane?
Well, I'm not advocating whittling it away. I'm advocating spending it only on the to fund the goal that we ourselves set for this year for this particular expenditure, and certainly the rest of it should be set aside.
Anyone else? Charlie?
Yeah, as the proposer of the last minute budget change, I agree with what Eric has said. I also made it clear that I look at this as a one-time deal. Hopefully we can have a clearer picture of our finances next year. We will, assuming the proposed modified $175,000 budget gets approved, we'll also need to look at rebalancing the township levy to help balance the differences in the two funds that we're dealing with. The bottom line, though, is that we have a very uncertain state budget, and we need to escrow. We have two issues. We have that particular hammer which hasn't fallen yet, and we need to escrow and finish the legal case, hopefully sometime in the next year, with this money. So, we shouldn't touch it in any way. And just because it's been distributed from category X to category Y doesn't mean that we can start picking at it for our pet projects. So I think for this year we should proceed as we agreed in committee a couple weeks ago. Thank you.
Diane?
I object to the characterization of social service funding as a pet project. This is a goal decided on by the city council as a whole for the city to fund. So it's not a pet project.
No, I was referring to pet projects of whittling away, the 1 point whatever from escrow for any of our projects that we might think of, whether they're council projects or individual pet projects. I meant it as the idea that we could tap this piggy bank of money for our collective projects. I can think of a half a dozen projects that rise to priority, such as our facilities studies that need to be done, and so on. There are a handful of things that are in our goals that we'd love to find some money to go after. And if we pick one now and say, we want to fund the $75,000 for this police officer, which we consider critical, I think that's a mistake. I think we should just leave it in escrow, and if and when the situation is decided, then we can deal with the one-time aspect of that money, or better yet, just leave it in the city because our cash reserves are so low.
Okay, anyone else? We have a motion. Oh, sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
That's all right. I just want to say one thing as far as for going forward with next year. As a taxpayer in the city of Urbana, I don't ever think that police and fire should be cut. I don't ever think they should be on the chopping block. I think public safety should be number one, and then all else should fall into place after that. And that's my opinion. So I know next year's far away, but I just wanted to share that tonight.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 You want a roll call? All right, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
No.
Ms. Marlin?
No.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. So,
Excuse me. On town board roll calls, does not the mayor vote?
no,
No? Oh,
I am not a member of the board.
I see, okay.
I'm only the moderator.
Okay, okay.
Okay?
I'm glad you know your place.
Thank you. I try. Okay, so that was ordinance number T 2015-07001, correct? Okay, and then we have, the next one is T 2015-07002, and this is the transfer of appropriation ordinance, and that is for the year that just ended on June 30th. This is to clean up the prior year, correct?
Move approval.
Yes.
I'll second that.
So who made the motion?
I-
Charlie? Charlie, seconded by Dennis. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next, we have the consideration of whether we're going to have a closed and open session.
I can address that without a closed session because there's not too much to tell you. The Attorney General had obtained extensions of time for filing his opening brief totaling 130 days. The state's attorney and I filed our opening briefs on time. The state's attorney and I filed our reply briefs on time on June 29th. The Attorney General obtained an extension of time of 35 days. That's in addition to the 14 normally allowed for a reply brief, which is normally short and simple. So that extends the Attorney General's time to August 3rd. So basically nothing has occurred since last month. I did talk to the appellate court clerk today, and they stated, assuming the Attorney General files his reply brief on August 3rd, they anticipate oral argument in October. They don't think they could still get it onto the September oral argument calendar by that point in time. So that's the status.
So if it gets talked about in October, when would it be decided?
I didn't understand.
If it gets talked about in October, does it take a really long time for it to be decided after that?
Under their rules, they decide cases within 60 days of oral argument. I've had decisions as soon as 7 days after oral argument. I don't think I've ever had one that actually took the full 60 days.
Okay, that's good. Any other questions? Eric?
So I just want to be clear, and maybe for the public largely, what you're talking about is the lawsuit in which we are the defendant, or one of the defendants, and this is for the back taxes in the years prior to the legislation providing the tax exempt status. Is that correct?
That's the case. The particular appeal, it's not the end of the case. The court is considering at this point in time several issues that will be very important and may simplify the balance of the case. The issues are the constitutionality of the statute. At least that's being presented. They can always avoid ruling on such a question if they choose. And whether the new statute applies to all these years for which Carl is seeking exemption, because those years predate the new statute.
Oh, okay. So from our perspective, the two issues are now rolled into one case, the constitutionality of the statute and the applicability of the statute to the prior years.
In one appeal, yes.
In one appeal. And is there anything else that we should be thinking about or can talk about in public about the constitutionality of the statute, or is this this one case where the action is now?
Well, we're actually raising that in every case at every opportunity, because you never know what case is going to get decided first.
Okay.
But that's the countersuit, right? That we questioned the constitutionality?
Well, the county is involved, yes.
Countersuit?
Oh, that. No, we are preparing to move to intervene in the presence suit where they didn't name any taxing districts, so that we can raise the constitutional issue there also.
Okay. Thank you very much. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.